Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Bhushan. In this video and in the next couple of videos, we're going to discuss about writing the JUnit test cases for the Spring Boot application. If you are following my YouTube channel for quite some time, then you will already find a video on my YouTube channel that is writing the JUnit test cases for the Spring Boot application. And in that video, I explained that how you can write the JUnit test cases for the repository layer. We haven't discussed about how we can write the JUnit test cases for the other layers, such as the service layer as well as the controller layer. We have not discussed about how we can perform the end-to-end testing or the integration testing. But in this crash course, we will learn everything about writing the JUnit test cases for the Spring Boot application. We will perform the integration testing and the end-to-end testing, and also we will learn how we can use the Mockito along with JUnit. So let's get started. Now you can enroll to my Udemy premium course, which is Build Production Ready REST API in Spring Boot and Data JPA. We're going to build the expense tracker API. You will learn a whole lot of things. Make sure to check out this course and also use this coupon code before enrolling to this course. And also you can enroll to the another course, which is building the Spring Boot application with Thymeleaf. We're going to create a web application which is Expense Manager, and you will learn a whole lot of things. Also, you can use this coupon code for this course as well. Now back to the video. I'm going to divide this crash course into 3 parts. In every single part, we're going to discuss about writing the test cases for one of the layers. In this video and in this part, we will be discussing about writing the JUnit test cases for the repository layer. In the subsequent part, we're going to discuss about writing the test cases for the other layers as well. Let's begin. I'm inside the STS IDE. I will be using this STS IDE throughout this course. You can also use IntelliJ IDEA or Eclipse IDE if you are comfortable with that. In interest of time, I have already created the Spring Boot application. If you open this Spring Boot application, inside the source main Java, we have 3 packages: the default package or the base package, and the model package, and the repository package. And if you open the pom.xml, I have added the few dependencies. I have added the data JPA dependency and the H2 dependency and the Lombok dependency. And this Spring Boot starter test dependency, which is defaultly added by the Spring initializer. And we need this dependency to write the JUnit test cases. And now if you open the model package, we have the model class, which is movie. And if you open this, I have created a private fields: ID, name, genre, and release date. And we have added the Lombok annotations, and also we have added the JPA annotations. We have mapped this entity to the table tbl_movies. We have marked the ID field as a primary key type using the ID annotation, and we have added the auto increment ID for using the @generated value annotation. And if you open the repository package, we have the movie repository. If you open this, we have it is a interface, and we have extended this interface with the JPA repository. We are going to write JUnit test cases for this movie repository. So what we are going to test in this movie repository? So if you observe this movie repository is extends with the JPA repository, and JPA repository has provided a bunch of predefined methods to perform the database operations like save, find by ID, delete by ID, delete, and find all. We are going to test all those methods. And where we are going to write the JUnit test cases, and if you open the source test Java, we are going to keep all our JUnit test cases inside this folder. If you open this, you will see a package similar to what we have inside this source main Java. And we are going to create a same package structure inside this as well. We are going to create a package for this repository because we are going to test the movie repository. So let's go ahead and create the package inside this. Right click and choose package. Let's call this repository. And inside this, we are going to create a JUnit class. We can either create the JUnit class or even we can create the Java class. So right click on this, create a new class. Let's call this movie repository test, click finish. Now, in order to test the test cases, in order to write the Java unit test cases, we are going to add a special annotation. If you open the project explorer and if you open this default package, we have this default test class. If you open this, you can see there is an annotation called @Spring Boot test annotation. We can use this annotation inside this movie repository test annotation. We can add this annotation here and we can write the unit test cases. But instead of using this annotation, we are going to use one more annotation, that is @data test annotation. So there are some benefits using that annotation. We can read few lines about the data test annotation inside the docs. So let's go to the browser and search for data test and crack open the first link, which is docs.spring.io. And if you open this, I highly recommend you to read few lines about the data test on this link. It has a great documentation. I'm going to highlight few of the things. That is, first of all, this annotation focuses only on the JPA components, which is it is going to focus on the entities and repositories. That's why we are going to use this data test annotation. And also one more advantage is using this annotation, it will disable the full auto configuration. Instead, apply only the configuration that are relevant to the JPA test. So we can only enable the configuration that are required for the JPA test instead of enabling the entire auto configuration. So that's why we are going to use this data test annotation. And also you can read it uses the embedded in-memory database, so we don't have to rely on the real databases such as MySQL, Oracle or PostgreSQL database. That's why we have added the H2 dependency inside our pom.xml. We are going to test the JUnit test cases. We are going to save the data into the database for the in-memory database. We are not going to use the real database to test the repository layer. And also we can enable the logging by you can also enable the logging using this property. We can add this property inside our property file and we can enable this, so we can see the logs inside the console. That's exactly what we're going to do. So let's copy this property and go to the STS and open the application.properties and add this property and set this to true. Now let's save this. Okay, now go to the movie repository test JUnit class, and inside this we are going to add the data test annotation. I hope you understand why we are going to use this data test annotation. This is from the dependency which we have added, which is Spring Boot starter test dependency. Inside this we will start writing the JUnit test cases. In order to test the movie repository, first of all we need to auto-wire this movie repository. So at the top, create a private field, private movie repository. Let's call this movie repository, and we can add the auto-wired annotation. Next, we will start writing the JUnit test cases. JUnit test cases are nothing but the Java methods, but it has an annotation called test annotation. So first of all, I'm going to close some of these files. We don't need these files. So let's close this. I'm going to expand this. Let's write the first JUnit test case. Void. I'm going to call this save. You can give any name you want. Like I said, every test case has an annotation called @test. So we will add this annotation. Now this method becomes the JUnit test case. Every JUnit test case is divided into three parts, that is arrange, act, assert. So arrange, which is nothing but setting up the data that are required for this JUnit test case, and act, which is nothing but calling a method or unit that is being tested, and assert, which is nothing but verifying the data whether the expected result is correct or not. So for every JUnit test case is divided into three parts, that is arrange, act, assert. we will also call it as AAA. Okay, so now let's set up the data for this test case. So this test case is all about testing whether the given movie object is stored in the database or not. So in order to save the movie object to the database, the requirement is the data that are required for that is movie object. So let's create the movie object, movie. I'm going to call this avatar movie, new movie, and now let's initialize some values. We can provide the values to the fields, that is avatar movie dot set name. We're going to set the movie name, which is avatar movie dot set genre. We're going to set the genre. This is an action movie, and we're going to set the release date, the movie release date. Set release date. I don't know when exactly it has been released, so local date. We're going to make use of the method of, and we will provide the year. Let's say it has been released in the year 2000, and month in the month of April, and let's say 22. Now we have set up the data that are required for this test case. Next, the act, which is nothing but the method or the unit that is being tested. So we want to test the save method. So let's make use of the movie repository dot save, and to this we're going to pass the object, which is avatar movie, and this is going to give us the saved movie object. So let's call this movie. I'm going to call this new movie. Okay, and the last part is assertion. We have to verify whether the result is correct or not, whether the behavior is correct or not. So for that we're going to make use of the assertions. So assert, there are so many methods are available inside the assertions. We're going to make use of the assertions, assert that we can use, or even we can use assert not null. We're going to make use of the assert not null, and this new movie object should not be null after we saved into the database. This new movie object should not be null. So that is what we are going to verify it. And also we can use assert that, and we can also make use of this new movie dot get ID. Once we stored into the database, this new movie object contains the ID. The ID should not be null. So we can make use of the method is not equal to null. Here we have not providing the ID. So here, before saving it to the database, the movie object contains the ID, it will be null, and after it is stored into the database, the ID will be initialized, ID will be 1 by default, and we are going to assert that the movie ID should not be equal to null. With this change, save the file. Now we want to test the JUnit test case. So if you want to test the JUnit test case, you can just click on this method and select this method and choose run as and choose JUnit test. We can see the SQL logs. You can see the table has been created, inserted the values to the table, and if you click on this icon, you will see the green bar, which means our test case has been passed. Okay, if you see the red bar, then our test case has been failed, but our test case has been passed because we have expected behavior is working as expected. So let's recap one more time what we have done. We have auto-wired the movie repository at the top, and we have created the JUnit test case, which is saved, and we have added the test annotation, and we understand that every JUnit test case is divided into 3 parts, that is arrange, act, and assert. And in the arrange part, we are going to set up the data that are required for our test case. We have created the movie object, and we have initialized the values, that is movie name, genre, and release date. In the act part, we have called the method that is being tested. we want to test the save method, we have called that method and we have stored the movie object into the database. And in the last part, we have verify whether the expected behavior is correct or not. We have took the new movie object and we have checked that new movie object should not be null, and also we have checked that new movie object ID should not be equal to null. We can also provide a custom names to these test cases. For example, if you open this console, you will see right now the test case method name is save, and if you want to change this, we can use that. We can also change that by adding the annotation, that is display name annotation. So let's add the display name annotation, and we can provide the custom name. We can also provide the custom names in sentences also. Let's say, for example, it should save the movie to the database. Now let's save this, and if you run the test case, instead of the save, you will see this custom name. Let's open this and you can see it should save the movie to the database. So we can also provide the custom names to these test cases using the display name annotation. This display name annotation is not only applicable to these test cases, we can also provide it to the class as well. Now let's write one more JUnit test case for find all method. So we know that JPA repository provide one more method, that is find all, which is used to retrieve the data from the database. So let's write a JUnit test case for that as well. Create a method void. I'm going to call this get all movies. Like I said, you can give any name you want. We can add the test annotation. Also, let's add the display name annotation and provide a custom name, that is it should return the movies. Inside this, like I said, every test case is divided into 3 parts, which is arrange, act and assert. Arrange, which is nothing but setting up the data that are required for our test cases. So what I'll do is I'm going to copy this movie object, copy this, and also I'm going to copy this as well, which is calling the save method. And similarly, I'm going to copy one more time and paste it. We are going to store the 2 movies to the database. Let's change this to Titanic movie and copy this and change all these reference variables, and I'm going to change this to, or what I'll do is we don't need this reference variable because we are not going to dealing with this reference variables after saving the movies to the database. We don't need this, and I'll change this as well. Okay, also we need to change this as well. Titanic, it's a romantic movie, so genre, let's set this to romance, and let's say assume that it has been released in the year 2002. I'm sure it is not released in the 2002. Let's say 1999, and maybe May, let's say 20. This is not the exact release date, so just assume that. Once we have stored into these movies to the database, what we have to do is we have to go to the next part, that is act, which is the method that is being called, that is the method that we wanted to test, that is find all. So let's make use of the movie repository dot find all. This is going to return the list of movies. Let's call this list. Let's import the list from the util package. Next, the last part is we have to verify whether the expected behavior is correct or not. Since we have stored these 2 movies into the database, this list should contains 2 records. The list size should be 2. So let's verify that. First of all, let's make use of the assert not null. We can use assert not null. We can check the list. The list should not be null. And next, similar to this not null, we can also use assert that. So assert that, let's pass this list, and we can call the is not null method. We can call is not null method. These both are same. Here we are using this assert not null, but here we are using the assert that, and then we are calling the is not null method. Both are same. You can use either of the options. And last, we need to check the size of the list. So assert equals, and you can see there are a bunch of overloaded methods are available, but you can see the first parameter is the expected and the second parameter is the actual one. So the expected, what we are expecting, the size is 2, and the actual is list.size, and save this. Alright, so now we have returned the JUnit test case for getting the list of movies from the database. So let me change this to movies list with size of 2. So it should return the movies list with a size of 2. So let's save this. We can test the JUnit test case. So if you want to test this particular JUnit test case, just select the method, right click, choose run as, choose JUnit test. We should see the logs inside the console. You can see the 2 insert statements and the select query. And if you crack open this console, you will see the green bar, and you will see our test case has been passed, and you can see the custom message or the custom name, that is it should return the movies list with size of 2. If you want to fail this test case, let's say change this to 1 and save this. Now select this and choose run as JUnit test. Our test case should fail. You can see the green bar. You can see the message that is expected 1, but it was returning 2. So this is how we can write the JUnit test cases. You can explore more about these assertions method. There are a bunch of assertion methods available. We are using some of the assertion methods, that is assert not null, assert that, is not null, and assert equals. And throughout this course, we will be using bunch of assertion methods as well. Next, let's write a JUnit test case for find by ID method. So let's create a method void. I'm going to call this get movie by ID. Add the annotation, that is test. Inside this, we're going to do the same thing: arrange, act, and assert. So first we need to set up the data that are required for this test case. So what I'll do is I'm going to copy one of this movie object and paste it. Next, once we store the movies into the database, next we have to call a method that is being tested, that is find by ID. So movie repository dot find by ID, and we are going to pass the ID which we want to test. So we are going to pass this avatar movie dot get ID, and on this we are going to call the get method. This will return the movie object. So movie, let's call this existing movie, and the last part is we have to assert that, we have to verify whether the expected behavior is correct or not. First of all, let's use assert not null. We can use existing movie. We can pass the existing movie. We are going to check whether this existing movie should not be null. Next, even if you don't add this, that is fine, because we are calling this get method, and if it is a null, it will actually throw the exception. But for the understanding purpose, I'm adding assert not null. We are going to check whether this existing movie should not be null. Next, we are going to check the genre, whether the genre is equal or not. Assert equals. We are going to check the expected is action. The genre is action movie. and we're going to check the existing movie dot get genre. We can also check for the release date as well. Assert that. Let's pass the avatar, not the avatar movie, which is, yeah, I think it's avatar movie dot get release date. We're going to check the avatar movie get release date is before. We're going to pass the date, that is local date dot off, which is 2000, and month, which is April, and 23. We are checking whether this date is before this date or not, and the release date is before this 2000 and April 23, whether this release date is before this date or not. I know I hope you already know about this, what is before will do. So let's save this. Now let's test the JUnit test case. So select this and right click, choose run as, click on this JUnit test. We can see the logs inside the console and our test case should pass. If you click on this, you can see the green bar and get movies by ID. Okay, we forgot to add the display name annotation. Let's provide a custom name. It is not a mandatory, but I usually add for all the JUnit test cases. Display name, provide the custom name, that is it should return the movie by its ID. Save this, select the JUnit test case, choose run as, JUnit test. We should see the green bar with the custom name. Click on this, you can see it should return the movie by its ID. We are checking the genre as well as the release date. Next, let's write a JUnit test case for updating the movie. Let's create a method void update movie. Let's add the test annotation, and inside this, first we need to set up the data that are required for our test case. I'm going to copy this and I'll paste it in the down. Next, we have to perform the act, which is nothing but we have to call a method that is being tested. First of all, okay, before that, we also need to set up the data. That is, we have to, once we have stored into this database, we have to get the data as well. So let's make use of the movie repository dot find by ID, and we can pass this avatar movie dot get ID. Let's call the get method. This is going to give us the existing movie. Let's call this existing movie. Now we have set up the data that are required for our test case. Next, we need to call a method that is being tested. Before that, we have to update the data. So we have to update this existing movie dot set genre. We're going to set the genre to romance, and also we're going to set the movie name to Titanic. Existing movie dot, okay, I think we can also set multiple fields as well, but to keep it simple, so let's only set the genre. I'm going to set this to romance, but for the avatar movie, romance doesn't suit. Let's change this to fantasy. Definitely Avatar is not a romance movie. The genre is not a romance, it's actually a fantasy, you can say. So let's set the genre to fantasy, and now we need to save this to the database. So movie repository dot save, and let's set this to, we can pass the existing movie, and this is going to give us the new movie. So movie, let's call this new movie. Now the last part is we have to verify whether the expected behavior is correct or not. What we are going to do is we are going to check this new movie genre is fantasy or not. So assert equals the expected is fantasy, and the actual is new movie dot get genre. Also we're going to check, we are going to assert that whether the movie name is Avatar or not, because we have not updated it. We have to verify whether only the genre has been updated or rest of all the fields are also updated. We have to verify that. So assert equals the expected is Avatar and the actual is new movie dot get name. Let's save this. So now we have, in the initial, we have set up the data, we have created the movie object, we have stored into the database, and we have retrieved the existing movie object, and then we have updated the values. We have changed the genre to fantasy, and then we have stored into the database. Now our movie has been updated. Next we are going to assert that whether the genre is correct or not. We are going to verify whether the genre is fantasy or not, and also we are going to verify that the movie name is Avatar or not. With this, let's save the file and let's add the display name annotation. We can provide the custom name to the test case. It should update the movie. It should update the movie with genre fantasy. You can give any name you want. I'm going to keep it simple. So let's save this. It should update the movie with the genre fantasy. So select the JUnit test case, right click, choose run as JUnit test. We should see the logs inside the console. We can see the insert table, insert statement. Before that, you can see the table movies and the insert query. And now, okay, our test case is failing. Okay, this is strange. Okay, I think it's type mismatch, fantasy, okay, this is actually fantasy. I know it is a typo error. So let's save this. And now if you run the test case again, that is why I confused that I did not see the console logs inside the console. Okay, now you can see that insert statement, and if you look at this, we should see the green bar, and also you can see that it should update the movie with the genre fantasy. So our test case is running successfully. If you see the red bar, then something wrong with your test case. As far as we have seen the green bar and our test case is working as expected, the expected behavior is correct. Next, let's write a JUnit test case for deleting the movie. Let's create a method void. I'm going to call this delete movie. Let's add the annotation test. Inside this, first we need to set up the data that are required for our test case. I'm going to copy these two movies. We're going to store the two movies into the database. So let's store this. And also what I'll do is I'm going to store the ID inside a variable long ID is equal to avatar movie.getId. And once we set up the data, what I'll do is I'm going to call the method that is being tested, which is delete movie repository dot delete, and to this delete we are going to pass the movie object. We're going to delete one of the movie object, that is avatar movie. So let's pass the avatar movie. Once we have deleted the movie, this avatar movie inside the database, our list size, our database should contain only one entry. So what I'll do is I'm going to call the method that is movie repository dot find all. This is going to return the list of movies. Let's call this list. Now we can verify the list of the movies that are present inside the database. We can assert that assert equals the expected is 1 and the actual is list dot size. Next we can also we can verify that we're going to check the existing movie is present or not. So we can make use of this ID. We can make use of the ID movie repository dot find by ID. Let's pass the ID, and this is going to return the optional of movie. Let's call this existing movie. Let's import the optional from the util package. Now we can pass this to the assert that existing movie is empty. We can verify, because once we have deleted this avatar movie, when we this will be deleted from the database, and now when we make the find by ID with this avatar ID, this should be an empty. So that is why we are verifying that this existing movie should be empty. So let's save this and let's add the display name annotation. It should delete the existing movie. So let's save this and now select the JUnit test case, choose run as JUnit test. We should see the logs inside the console. You can see the delete statement and the select query, and now if you click on this, you should see the green bar. Our test case should be passed, and you can see it should delete the existing movie. Next, let's write a JUnit test case for JPA finder methods. So inside the movie repository, let's create a new finder method or the query method. We're going to create a query method for the genre. So find by, and you can see we have the genre. So let's choose genre, and this is going to take the genre as a parameter, which is of type string, and this is going to return the list of movies. So let's import the list, and I believe that you already aware of creating the finder methods or query methods using the JPA repositories. In case if you are new to creating the finder methods or query methods, I highly recommend you to check out my course. The link will be given in the description section of this video. Now we have this finder method. Now let's write a JUnit test case for this finder method. Let's go to this movie repository test and create a method void get movies by genre. Let's add the annotation test, and inside this, first we need to set up the data that are required for our test case. I'm going to take these two movie objects and paste it. Let me create some white space, and we don't need this ID, so let's get rid of this. And next we need to call a method that is being tested. So let's make use of the movie repository dot find by genre, and we can pass the genre. Let's say romance. We have stored two records into the database. The one is action genre and the romance genre. So when we find by genre, when we have done this, we should get a single movie object or a single record. This is going to return list of movies with the genre romance. So let's call this list. Now we have to verify whether the expected behavior is correct or not. We have to assert that. So first of all, we're going to check assert not null. Let's pass the list, and next we're going to check the list size. Assert that list dot size is equal to 1. Save this. Let's quickly add the custom name to this test case. It should return the movies list with genre romance. So let's save this. Select the JUnit test case, right click, choose run as JUnit test. So let's save this. We should see the SQL logs inside this console. You can see the two insert statements and the select query. And if you look at this, we should see the green bar. We can see it should return the movies list with genre romance. So this is how we can write the JUnit test cases for the custom methods or the query methods, or also called as finder methods. Alright, till now we are running the JUnit test cases individually. Now let's go ahead and run all these test cases. So in order to run all these test cases, you can just right click on this file and choose run as and choose JUnit test. All our test cases should be passed. We should see the green bar. And now if you go to this, you should see the green bar, and you can see all the test cases has been passed. The first one is it should delete the existing movie, it should return the movies list with a size of 2, it should update the movies with genre fantasy. You can see all the test cases has been passed. We have written 6 JUnit test cases, and all these 6 JUnit test cases has been passed. One thing you should also notice that the order of these test cases is not one after the other, like it is executing randomly. It is not executing in the order which we have written. It is running the JUnit test cases in random. Later we are going to see how we can test these test cases in order wise, like in order what we have written. For now it is testing the test cases randomly. Alright, now if you look at one thing, in every test cases what we are doing is we are setting up the data. But we are setting up the data, the common code or the repeated code that we are doing it inside the every test cases. We are setting up the same code in every test cases. So what we can do is we can refactor this. The JUnit has provided a lifecycle methods. We can make use of the lifecycle methods to refactor this code. Inside the lifecycle method, we can set up the common data that required for all these test cases. So that's exactly what we are going to do. In case if you don't know the lifecycle methods that are provided by JUnit, I highly recommend you to check out my video. I have created a separate video on that. The link will be given in the description section of this video. So at the top, we're going to create a method void init. You can give any name you want, but we are going to use the annotation that is BeforeEach annotation. BeforeEach annotation. So as the name suggests, this method will be called before executing the each and every JUnit test case. So inside this, we can easily set up the data so that before running every JUnit test case, this init method will be executed and we can set up the data. So what I'll do is, outside of this, we are going to create a movie object, because for every test cases we are creating the movie object. So let's create a movie objects. We're going to create a reference variables, private avatar movie. So let's copy this avatar movie. Before that, let's add movie, avatar movie, private movie, Titanic movie. Now we have these two private variables or the reference variables. Now inside this, we can directly copy this and we can create the objects. We don't need to call the save methods. We just need these movie objects. And also let's get rid of this, because we have already created the reference variables outside of this method. Alright, so now let's save this. So now we have this init method. We have added the add before each annotation, and inside this we have set up the data. So now before running every JUnit test case, this init method will be executed. Now inside this, we are going to remove all of these data, all of the code that we have created the movie objects. So what I'll do is, I'm going to get rid of this. So let's get rid of this. We don't need this. And also inside this, we don't need this as well. Let's get rid of we don't need to remove this calling the save method, because we need that save method. Similarly here also, let's get rid of this, and here also let's get rid of this. Just refactor the code, that's it. Alright, so now we have refactored all of this code. So with this, now let's save the file and let's run the JUnit test cases. Right click on this, choose run as JUnit test. Like before, all the JUnit test cases should pass. We should see the green bar. Alright, we can see the green bar. All of our test cases has been passed, which means all our code is executed correctly. All of these test cases behavior is working as expected. But what we have done is, we have refactored the code. We have moved that common code into the method init, and we have added the add before each annotation. And this is a lifecycle annotation, you can call it as. This method will be executed before running each and every JUnit test case. So inside this method, we are setting up some data that are required for all of our test cases.